What if I told you the state of California once had a track nicknamed the Indy of the West? In the 1970s, the city of Ontario had the famous Ontario Motor Speedway. Constructed at a cost of $25.5 million, the track broke ground in 1968. After two prior attempts in the 1960s to build the Indy of the West, it was finally great to see the track open officially in August of 1970. William Lawrence, who was the CEO of one of California's largest commercial construction companies, sent information on the failed projects to David Lockton, co-founder of Sports Headliners. Because of Lockton's personal friendship with Indianapolis Motor Speedway owner Tony Holman, he not only obtained the promise of a USAC-sanctioned 500-mile race, but also personnel help from IMS. To put it simply, the track was built with bonds. He obtained the first and only IRS ruling to allow tax deductibility on that bond. The ambition was to make this a marquee facility in not only motorsports, but entertainment. Their first official race took place on September 6, 1970. The advertising campaign was so successful that all reserve seats were completely sold out over 6 weeks before the inaugural California 500.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
The top names in racing lead the way. Then near the end of the race, the favorites started dropping out. Overheating, engines ruined, suspension gone. And the inaugural California 500 became a Cinderella story. At the finish, in car number 14, Jim McElreath is the winner. One of the oldest drivers in the track, a man who had never won a major race in over 20 years, competing against the biggest prize winners of them all. He stayed in and hung on. A cautious man who played it right and won.
Make the presentation to the first winner here in Ontario. Governor? This is really a very proud moment for all of California.
In February of 1971, the track would host its first ever NASCAR Cup race. The inaugural race was won by A.J. Foyt, and the following year he won again. It was the second race on the NASCAR schedule for both of those years. In 1973, it was scheduled but was never ran. Exactly 1 month after the inaugural Cup race, Ontario Speedway hosted a non-championship race for both Formula 1 and Formula 5000 cars. Even though the attendance was good, the track had hoped for better. Mario Andretti won the first and only Quester GP. Due to financial problems, it remained a one-off event and Formula 1 never returned. But the track was a regular on both IndyCar and NASCAR schedules. Throughout the 1970s, the track hosted at least one race from each series. When NASCAR returned in 1974, the track became the season finale for the next 6 seasons. Richard Petty won his 7th and final championship in 1979, while in 1980, Dale Earnhardt Sr. would win the first of his 7 championships. The track was in the 1970s movie Death Race 2000, featuring Sylvester Stallone. In 1971, Evel Knievel jumped over 19 cars in front of 50,000 people. But the greatest event the track hosted outside of racing was, without question, California Jam. The inaugural concert took place on April 6, 1974, and drew a crowd of 300 to 400,000, making it the largest paid attendance for a rock concert. Even portions of the concert were televised on ABC. California Jam 2 was held on March 18, 1978, and drew just a little over 300,000. But it wasn't televised live, as portions of the concert were shown on tape delay months later. You're probably wondering, how in the world did this facility end up on abandoned tracks? Well, for starters, take a look at the attendance. It's a good sized crowd, but the problem is the seating capacity is 180,000. As the years went on, attendance for Ontario Speedway races got lower and lower. The 1979 and 80 finale attendance was absolutely embarrassing. And because of IndyCar's USAC and CART split, attendance for those races suffered as well. By 1980, the track was in deep trouble as revenues continued to dwindle. But the ownership group was completely unaware of something. The value for the land had actually gone up. The land was originally purchased at an average price of $7,500 per acre, had now risen to a value of a whopping $150,000 per acre. Chevron Land Company, a division of Chevron Corporation, recognized the opportunity to acquire the bonds and effectively foreclosed on the real estate. To simplify what I just said, Chevron swooped in when the track was at its lowest and purchased it for $10 million. At first, it was looking like Ontario Speedway was about to get a second life. What ended up happening was once Chevron realized the land they had purchased for $10 million had a commercial real estate development value of $120 million, they decided to completely demolish the track and sold off the land. And just like that, it was the end of Ontario Motor Speedway. In the same race Dale Sr. won his first championship, Benny Parsons went on to win the final LA Times 500. It would be the final race Ontario Motor Speedway ever hosted. Today, the land looks a whole lot different. Not only does it have its own hockey arena, but also multiple shopping centers, hotels, and neighborhoods. It doesn't look like a 2.5-mile track once occupied this land, but don't worry, there are minor tributes. It can be seen in the nearby street names, Densburg Drive and Ferrari Lane. But if you go down to the area where Turn 3 used to be, perhaps you'll stumble on the remains of the once giant speedway.
There's some kind of ruins over here. Ontario Center. All right. Here we got a pile of asphalt still here at Turn 3.
Ontario Speedway is one of those what-if tracks, and to younger motorsports fans, it feels almost like an urban legend. You mean to tell me there was once a racing facility in Ontario, California that was identical to Indianapolis Motor Speedway and hosted NASCAR, IndyCar, and F1 races, as well as one of the greatest music festivals of all time, and it was completely demolished after the 1980 season? Most of us watching this video weren't around to see a race there, but if you'd happened to be around during that time, you are extremely lucky to have witnessed this place. But don't worry, it's not all gloom and doom for younger fans. You can still visit the Ontario Motor Speedway Park, or if you want to see the original layout, you can go ahead and download it in NR 2003. Ontario Motor Speedway, what could have been. And once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.